the guy that was a little bit hesitant about when the commitment initially happened, and 95% of that is just due to the ACL injury. But we're going to talk about Jayden Quaintance first. And I'm just going to throw up this is just a video that I put together from my rim protection video I did on him a couple days ago. Brandon and I have been able to watch a bunch of film on this kid. But as this is kind of playing in the background here, you guys are going to see just how unreal Jayden Quaintance is at protecting the rim and just using his body, being long. But Brandon, I'm going to let you start here with Jayden before we just kind of bounce off each other and talk about him for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, however long it ends up being. But just kind of what are your initial expectations of Jayden Quaintance now that you've seen the film? And let's just kind of assume that he returns when he returns and he's 95% of the version that he was last year, along with the, an offseason of being able to learn the game and things like that kind of baked into your thought process.
Yeah, I think that what you're getting with Jayden Quaintance, and I know this is just year 2, so it kind of sounds like hyperbole, but by far the most talented player that Coach Pope's had in Lexington. Like, leaps and bounds, it's not even close. At his very best, this guy is a National Defensive Player of the Year. He's an All-American, and he's a top 5 NBA draft pick probably in 2026. Like that's the ceiling that we're talking about with Jayden Quaintance, and we'll get into some more of that. But talking about a ceiling, that's really easy to get excited about. I love what his floor is, because to me, his floor is pretty much what you saw last year, and that was one of the most dominant interior defenders in all of college basketball. This guy is an elite rebounder on both ends of the floor, which is something that, as Kentucky fans, that should be music to your ears. He's an elite rim protector, which, once again, that should be music to your ears as a member of Big Blue Nation, because this is a guy that's going to erase some mistakes. Like, Kentucky at different times last year wasn't very good defensively, and they weren't very good kind of on the back end of being able to erase any of those mistakes at the rim. Because Amari Williams, like, his rim protection from Drexel, quite frankly, just didn't quite translate to Kentucky. This is a guy that's already done it in the Big 12. Like, I don't have any worry about everything that we saw Jayden Quaintance do as a 17-year-old at Arizona State. He's going to do just fine now as an 18-year-old in the Southeastern Conference. So obviously the question mark is the knee. Is he healthy? Does he have the same pop that he had before the surgery? All that kind of stuff. But you asked me to talk about what it would be like if he's kind of what we saw from Jayden Quaintance last year, what we knew of him as a prospect coming into college. If he is that version of himself, then you have a really, really special player coming to Lexington next season.
Yeah, so we had the weird thing last year where Amari Williams and Brandon Garrison just sometimes would refuse to kind of block shots when guys were coming their way. I still don't really know if that was just a coaching thing, like maybe trying to get them to avoid fouls. Maybe they just didn't trust them to do that type of stuff. I will personally run down on the floor and yell at Coach Pope if he does the same thing with if Jayden Quaintance starts doing the same thing, because this kid does not do any. If you are in the vicinity of him, and by vicinity I mean probably within a 6-foot radius of this kid, he's going to try and block your shot. He's going to do whatever he can. He's fast enough with his feet. That's what the craziest thing about this kid is. He's so quick with his feet. Like, even this play right here is a good example. You're not going to get by him. You're not going to get around him. He's too big. He's too strong. He's too fast. He has a 7'5" wingspan, which I think is just insane to think about. But he erases everything. And he's one of those guys that even if he doesn't block the shot, he's going to do enough. Like, just that play right there. Did not block the shot, but he made life very difficult for that guy that was coming at him. And you're going to see a lot of guys that might have easy layups completely turn them down and pass out to the perimeter because they are in fear of what Jayden Quaintance will do if they get too close to him. It doesn't matter if you're a center, small, big. He is capable enough. And I know I might be sounding a little hyperbolic with some of this stuff, but I genuinely think that you're looking at, I mean, who's the best rim protector? Is Isaiah Jackson probably the best? Is he the last real rim protector Kentucky's had? Would you say? Is there someone that comes to mind? But
probably, before? Yeah, that seems
probably Isaiah Jackson. And I do have what I love doing is a lazy Kentucky comparison with some of these guys. Like, who do they kind of loosely remind me of that played at Kentucky, just to make it easier for fans to understand. I think Bam Adebayo defensively is you're getting some of that just defensive versatility where he can legitimately guard 1 through 5. Is quick and long and has a really good second bounce. We'll see how that if that is still kind of the same thing with the ACL injury and all that stuff. But by all accounts, especially nowadays, like kids are coming back from ACL injuries looking like, they nothing had happened, especially when they happened this young. So I'm just very, very excited about him in general. And that's just the defense stuff. Like, I think the offense that's where you're talking like, okay, what is he going to be offensively? Because that's really where, like you were talking about his floor, Brandon, like his floor is this kid's going to make Kentucky's defense twice as good as it was last season. Mm-hmm. The ceiling, though, is if he can be anything, because really, like, from the games I watched, he was not that great on offense. He could kind of get to his spots a little bit, but just didn't really have a jumper on him. He was not trusted to shoot from outside. Just kind of, it's important to note that he was 17 playing his entire freshman season. He turns 18, I think, in June or July or something like that. So offensively, I think there's still a big work in progress there. And that's where the ACL injury, I think, really sucks, because you'd like to have that whole offseason to try and hone his skills. But he is a pretty decent playmaker. I'm not going to say a great playmaker just from what I've seen, but he has definitely all the chops and skills to fit that Mark Pope mold on offense. Just what do you think about his offensive skill set, and kind of how do you think that might translate to Kentucky?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things I want to talk about with Jayden Quaintance on the offensive end of the floor. First off, and I love that you talked about it the way that you did, in terms of, everything around him, he's going to try to block the shot, and how there, it's frustrating at times when you would watch Amari Williams almost like back away from the guy to let them have a layup or whatever. And the exact same thing translates to the offensive end of the floor. Think about, heck, I remember sitting in my seat in Milwaukee, just like nearly having a seizure because Amari Williams wouldn't dunk the basketball against Troy. I promise you, to a man and woman, anybody listening to this, Jayden Quaintance tries to dunk every single ball when he has it. Like, this dude, he's going to try to block everything, and he's going to try to dunk everything. And that kind of level of nasty is what we were kind of looking for some guys last season. And I think it's something that you can really get excited about. But in terms of the skill, like, yeah, it was kind of raw last year because he was 17 playing in the Big 12. Like, that's quite literally unprecedented. I don't know if there's ever been a 17-year-old play high major basketball. It just doesn't really happen.
Actually, if I can, not high major, guess how old Cam Williams was for most of last season?
Was he 17?
He was 17 for most of last. I don't think all season, but most of the season he was 17 as well.
There we
go. Just throwing that out there. That's
for
our wings, the wings thing.
Yeah. But Quaintance is going to be comfortable, as you mentioned. He's going to be comfortable doing what Coach Pope asks of his forwards. He's going to be able to handle the ball kind of positionally out on the perimeter, getting into some zoom action, other handoffs, get stuff, all that kind of thing. He's going to be able to pass it a little bit. Like, if there's a back door, things like that, he's comfortable hitting that. And then I think the space is going to really allow him to flourish, because you saw at times, again, because he's so big and long and athletic, he can attack a closeout. If an opposing big man is lazy with his footwork, coming out to, try to contest him as a passer or whatever, he can put it on the ground, 2 dribbles to his right and go and dunk it. Or he's a guy that can probably turn a drive into a post move in some space and go score. I think that he's a guy, he has enough footwork and ability to score with both hands inside that he'll be a guy you'll be able to run some things for, to throw it inside and score in the post. And, that's something that, honestly, even looking back to like Oscar Tshiebwe wasn't like this nasty back to the basket score. It was rim run, it was on the roll, it was on the short roll, and it was offensive rebounding. Like, Jayden Quaintance is a guy where, like, you can run some shuffle cut stuff or diagonal screen the screener and, like, get the ball to him on the block and kind of let him go to work, both as a scorer and as a passer. So I think that, again, we're going to keep saying it, like, his defense sets the floor, and his offense is what really, sets that potential ceiling for him. And I think there's every reason to believe that we're going to keep, beating the horse. But, like, when you go from 17 to 18, that's a pretty big jump. And, that year 1 to year 2 jump of playing big time basketball, and especially, working with a guy like Coach Pope, who obviously was a big man himself, I have to imagine that once he gets healthy, his improvement over the course of his sophomore season could be rather exponential. And I think it's a guy too that, if you have worries about the injury, like, he does need to play in order to have, like, the NBA position that he wants to have. Like, sure, could he, like, milk it and hardly play and be the 36th pick? Probably so. But like, I don't think that's what this guy plans on being. Like, he wants to
No.
be a lottery pick. In order to be a lottery pick, he's going to have to come out and be, that borderline, all SEC, all American type guy that we all believe he can be. So I think that he is going to be very motivated to get back from this injury, to be the best that he can be, and kind of prove to the world that, like, hey, no, like, I really am a really special prospect, like some people thought that he could be out of high school.